The HomeTech podcast is supported by you. To find out more, go to HomeTech.fm/support.
This is the HomeTech podcast for Friday, November 7th from Denver, Colorado. I'm Jason Griffin.
And from Sarasota, Florida, I'm Seth Johnson.
How you doing, Seth? Feeling inconclusive?
Well, I mean, by the time the show comes out, we should know something, right?
Hopefully we'll know something.
No idea. Election, big election. I'm sure the world knows that the world knows what the United States does. I'm sure everybody listening to the podcast knows it. There was a big election, and we ran it up to the line. There's no clear winner, so to speak, where they can take the exit polls numbers or the computer tabulated numbers and figure out who won. We have this archaic system that you have to add up the numbers. You have to grind them up, mix it in with some chemicals, look at it through the light of a prism, and then that gives you the something. I don't. It's a really strange system that we have, and evidently
right.
You need 270 something to win, and that's what everybody says, and it's just a mess. It's just a mess. So.
It is indeed. Let's hope that their ability to count is better than my ability to keep track of days. Eddie in the chat room kindly points out Friday is the 6th, not the 7th. So ignore what I said there on the intro. And thanks for that, Eddie. In other anticipatory news, I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to use that word on the show. In other anticipatory news, Seth, JoshAI teasing a major announcement November 10th, I believe. November 10th.
They've been teasing this quite a bit. And I have no real idea what they're doing. I'm not sure. I haven't really gotten any hints. Maybe let's throw something out there. Maybe they're going to do a major announcement November. I guess major would be maybe they expanded to another market like the UK or something. I don't know.
Yeah, So it is November 10th, 11 a.m. Pacific time. They've sent out save the dates. You can Google JoshAI event and it'll come right up if you're interested in more. I've got a theory here, Seth.
Okay.
You ready? So I think they give a big hint right here. They said, imagine what would be possible if you brought JoshAI's award-winning engineers and the world's most innovative architects and designers together to revolutionize the smart home again. I think that the architects and designers is the key there. And my guess is that this is going to be some sort of a system for, and this is pure speculation, but some sort of a system for integrating voice control into very high-end homes with almost minimal or maybe zero visible microphones. So moving away from the model where you've got things on walls and devices on countertops. I've always thought this would be an interesting model where what if the voice control was just built right in to the structure of the home? So it was a little bit more invisible. Again, I have zero information to validate that speculation, but if I was forced to put some of my money down on what this is, I think that hint there in the bringing the architects and designers into the fold, I suspect has something to do with making voice control a little bit more seamlessly from a design or visual standpoint integrated into the home.
Because the micro is already a small device. It's like a little hockey puck, maybe a little bit bigger size piece of equipment that you would plug in, and disappearing that's going to be a tall order. I don't know. How they're gonna, that's an interesting one. That's a better one than I had. Although I think it would be nice for our friends overseas to get their hands on some JoshAI, but they speak with funny accents that American products don't understand. So,
right. Well, you think about Origin had that thing come out. I'm not sure how it's going and if it's still around, but it was to take an Echo device and put it up behind a speaker grill in the ceiling. Right. So it's not necessarily that you have to get the device down so small. It's just you got to come up with a way to hide it. I don't know. That's the best I can come up with. But it'll be interesting. They've been really pumping this in the industry. So I'll be curious to see what it is. But moving into our show here, really quickly. We're going to jump into some home tech headlines here momentarily. But before we do that, we did want to mention very quickly that we had John Clancy, the VP of Residential at Crestron, on the show. It was a fantastic conversation. Seth, we have been really talking about Crestron quite a bit since we started the show, but especially since 2015 when they made the decision to pull out of CEDIA. That was a big decision that sent a lot of speculation and shockwaves through the industry in terms of, was Crestron committed to the residential channel? It was really fascinating to get John's perspective on that and how that decision, incidentally, led directly to John's taking over of residential there at Crestron. And the conversation really covers a wide gamut of the things that they've been working on and what they've been busy with at Crestron since he took the helm of residential. So really interesting conversation, and be sure to stay tuned for that.
Well, Jason, what do you say we jump into some home tech headlines?
Let's do it.
Netflix is raising the prices of its standard and premium plans. Its standard plan, previously $13 a month, is now a whopping $14 a month, while the premium plan has been raised from $16 to $18 a month. The price of the basic service is unchanged at $9 a month. I don't know what to think about this. It's not. I mean, it's like the what is that analogy? The frog in the boiling water. Like, they just keep turning up the heat. And we don't know. Frog in the frying pan. We won't know, and we'll be cooked one day.
Yeah. And there was a time when Netflix, I remember, like, Reed Hastings was very big on not raising prices, and now we've seen several of these from Netflix in recent memory. And I don't know, from one angle, I look at it and say it's just $1, and I think I still get plenty of value. From the other angle, it's like, it just kind of keeps going. But ultimately, I think the most interesting thing about this, Seth, is imagine being in a position where you can raise your price to subscribers by such a small amount, by $1, and assuming zero churn. Of course, there may be some, but assuming zero churn, and very, very rough math here, 73.08 million U.S. subscribers. Some of those are going to be on the plan that there is a plan that isn't changing. But assume conservatively that, I don't know, you raise your top line revenue by like $50 million by raising prices on users for $1. I mean, the numbers are kind of staggering.
They get big real quick.
Exactly.
Yeah, Netflix is like, if you look into the actual business of them, they made all these incredible investments into studios and originals earlier on. They were well ahead of the game when it came to getting those products out on their streaming platform. And I think they're like just way over leveraged in debt. So they've got to start kicking up subscriber numbers or increasing profits to start paying back for their larger catalog that they've been shoveling out. So it's all going to come to a head. And one day we'll be paying $20, $29, $30 for Netflix. But I suspect by that point, you probably have a lot of content that you can pick from. But it does feel like that frog. I think this started back like $12 a month. Now it's up to $14 for the standard plan. I don't remember what the premium was. I think that was kind of introduced to break off of the standard plan to kind of tease people away from, good, better, best type thing. So I don't really remember what that does. I want to say we're paying the 14. I can't say that we're paying any more than that.
Still feels like a great value to me. I'm certainly not going anywhere, but
no, I'm not. Netflix is one of the staples in the house, and Netflix, the Disney Channel, which thanks to that deal you and I found that we have for the next 10 years or whatever, and then my daughter's gonna be like 6, and it's like, with the Disney Channel, we've got to start paying for it now.
No kidding.
And I think that's really all that we're watching right now. Netflix has some pretty good shows on it. The Haunting of Bly Manor or something like that is what we're watching. It's a pretty good one. Pretty good. Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. Been hearing a lot of good things about the Queen's Gambit lately.
I heard somebody mention that today. That was
Seems
good
to be
as
the
well.
one getting all the buzz now.
Yeah. And of course, on Apple TV Plus, I will plug this one. It's the antidote for 2020. Make sure that you go check out Ted Lasso. That is the it will cure 2020 of anything. It's a great show. I just can't recommend that highly enough.
Good stuff. Greg says Queen's Gambit is absolutely awesome. So I have to check that out.
Is the Queen in it?
What's that?
I don't know what it's about. Is the Queen in it? Seems like the Queen should be.
I watched a trailer. It looks like it's about chess. There's a female lead, and I don't know. It's hard to describe. Go watch the trailer. It looks good.
Not the band, not Elizabeth, but maybe a chess piece.
No.
Okay.
All right, let's keep moving. The next time you visit your local Walmart, you could find a Comcast X1 powered TV among the endless variety of sets from LG, Samsung, and TCL. According to the Wall Street Journal, the telecommunications company is in early talks with Walmart about a potential pact that could see the retailer sell TV sets that run Comcast software similar to its Flex set-top box. Interesting.
The race to input.
It's that input zero.
Yeah. Yep.
That's right. Continuing here, it says part of the deal, Walmart would reportedly get a slice of recurring revenue from Comcast, so that makes sense. And for Walmart, meanwhile, the deal would also mean more value-priced TVs to put on the shelves, with Comcast providing support and software.
I think this is where this industry had needed to be headed for the past decade. It just made sense to me that with all the streaming stuff that's going on, and now the streaming platforms have certainly matured in the past. I would say 3 to 4 years more than they were in prior to that, and now it seems like I know it's incredibly hard to do the streaming stuff properly with all the licensing and whatnot, but you have a company like Comcast that can get on this and put they're basically just running the software on a little cable box in your house. Now they don't need that cable box. Now they don't need a technician to come out and put it in. You just hang the TV on your wall, get it on Wi-Fi, and you've got Comcast cable. You're done. There's nothing else to do. That makes a lot more sense than running all of these horrible cable boxes around.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not going to be fun to integrate, but
no.
it will. I can tell you that right now.
Details.
Yeah, details. The latest Nest thermostat isn't the only model that can tell you if something's wrong with your HVAC system. Even older models will get the capability now that Google-owned brand has rolled out HVAC monitoring to all Nest thermostats across the U.S. and parts of Canada. According to the software engineers from Nest, they started working on HVAC monitoring feature 2 years ago as a side project. And the company started testing it earlier this year and sending users who sign up for the Nest Home Report alerts if the system detects something wrong with their heating and ventilation or AC. Always good to get extra features added into a product, an older product that you may have bought. And, with the push of a button, there you go.
Yeah.
New capability.
And I like this. We've talked about this sort of functionality on the show before. I don't remember if it was specific to Nest or what it was, but generally the idea of devices getting smarter and giving us more actionable information. And hopefully it doesn't happen often for you, but I did have my Ecobee thermostat a while back give us an alert that, hey, we've noticed that the heat, we've been calling for heat for quite a while, and the house is not warming up. You might want to check things out. And I don't remember what it was, but indeed it had pointed out a problem to us that we had to have checked out, and it was a relatively inexpensive thing to have fixed, but I just thought that was kind of cool. So again, not something necessarily that you hope to use often, but I really look forward to devices getting more of this, getting more of that intelligence that can help make us aware of issues around the house. I think is an exciting trend.
You can almost say that it makes your house smarter.
Almost. We're going to get there. We are going to get there.
All the links and topics we've discussed tonight can be found on our show notes at HomeTech.fm/326. Wow, we're up there. While you're there, don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter, which includes even further analysis as well as industry news that may not have made the show. Again, that link is HomeTech.fm/326.
Also, don't forget you can join us live in our chat room on Wednesday evenings, typically starting around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Find out more at HomeTech.fm/live, or another great way to do that is to follow us over on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast. We'll usually shoot out a tweet 5 or 10 minutes before we get started. We've got a few folks hanging out with us in the chat room tonight, and we always appreciate that. All right, Seth. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our conversation. Once again, we had John Clancy, the VP of Residential over at Crestron, and we really hope you enjoy it. Hey, John, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Jason, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. We're excited to have you on, and we're really looking forward to jumping in and catching up with you. It's been following the Crestron journey has been something we've been talking a lot about here on the show for the last several years, and we're excited to finally have you on. So looking forward to that. But before we jump into the details here, why don't you give a quick introduction to yourself, just for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with you or your background in the industry?
All right. Well, so I've been in this industry for almost 30 years now. So I started in 92 as an integrator, as actually a technician. And I think I've worked in just about every role possible at my former company, working my way up to be one of the owners. And about 4.5 years ago, I took this position at Crestron, which did not exist prior to me joining. And it's been an exciting journey.
Yeah, that's great. A man after my own heart. Seth and I both come from the integration background, and I did, I think, pretty much everything short of ownership. I started out in the crawl spaces and attics and worked up through wiring racks and programming and ops and project management and even a little bit of sales, which wasn't very good at. But here we are, and so it's fun to talk to somebody who's really had such a wide depth of experience in the industry. To that end, why don't you share a little bit about your current position as the VP of residential there at Crestron, and to the extent that you have a typical day, what does that look like for you?
Well, look, I'll step back 1 second because, I will say as the integrator, right, it's so easy to sit back and point fingers and complain about manufacturers and their products and all this stuff. And now being on this side, with 4,000 SKUs at Crestron and new things coming just about on a weekly basis, it is a challenge to say the least. But my typical role daily is, obviously I manage and run the business unit globally, right? So I'm involved with our sales, our marketing. I am involved with product development, software development. There isn't really much that touches this channel for Crestron Residential that I'm not involved with.
Very good. Well, let's take a step back in time here and start at kind of the beginning of when you joined the team at Crestron. This is going back to right around 2015, and obviously most of the listeners to our show will remember one of the big significant stories that year was Crestron pulling out of CEDIA. And that certainly sparked a lot of conversation in the industry. So let's start there and talk about your take on Crestron's decision and sort of what that prompted you to do.
Sure. So it was at CEDIA in 2015 that I was formally elected to the CEDIA board of directors. I had spent basically probably 20 plus years, around 20 years at that point in time, primarily selling Crestron in the residential space. And when that announcement was made, I was, I guess, somewhat infuriated. I had some doubts as to Crestron's commitment to the residential channel at that time. And here, I am, this is all I do for the most part. Our company was solely focused on Crestron in the residential space. We were, if not the biggest, one of the biggest Crestron residential dealers in the world. And so I had a conversation with the CEO and president of Crestron, Randy Klein, who is now my current boss. And it was really about that. I was, I said exactly that. I already had my doubts about your commitment to the residential channel. You guys pulling out of CEDIA, this is just terrible. And he explained to me his reasons. And, I didn't get it at first. And after a few conversations, we finally came to terms and I understood what he was doing. At that point in time, if you remember back, the CEDIA Expo show was really changing its direction and kind of, I wouldn't say misdirected, but it was kind of all over the place. It was trying to be everything to everyone. There was a lot of DIY product at the show. I believe some DIY products who were really built, or these products that were really built to bypass the integrator, right, to be sold to the end user, were winning awards and had this primary focus at the show. And I think that really infuriated Randy in the sense that, here's Crestron, this professionally installed solution provider at this show where these DIY products are surrounding it, and it didn't feel right. And I think, when looking back, I somewhat agree to that. And anyway, that evolved over the course of time with essentially, if Crestron had some real focus and dedicated direction in the residential channel, they can dominate. And that evolved into, well, John, why don't you come here and do something about it? I was not looking for a job. I was one of the owners of my company. My office, I'm here at home now. My office was or is 6 miles away. Now I get in the car and I travel sometimes 2 hours in the morning to go from Long Island to New Jersey, and it's not easy. But I was looking for a challenge, and I certainly got that. But I really believed, and I still do, that this was like waking the sleeping giant. If I can just focus some of the energy towards the residential space, we can really do some magic.
Yeah, that's it's funny you were mentioning about complaining about almost complaining about manufacturers and the decisions that they're making as an integrator is like in the job description, and I'm just like I was laughing about that because it's just what we do. It's what we do it so well. But going from being an integrator and transitioning over into your new role at Crestron, like what was that initial onboarding like? Like how did you make the transition from being an integrator who deals with like the sales side of the product and move into a role where you're having to actually manage the product to be sold out? You're having to put the pieces together for an integrator.
Well, look, and I think, like you said, I think we've all opened boxes and looked at stuff and said, who in the world thought of this? Like, why did they do this? Right? So I don't have that excuse anymore.
Right.
But I will say, especially early on, it was certainly culture shock, right? Going from a small company where I had gone through the ranks, most of the people there I hired for the most part, and being the boss essentially, to going into this, multi-billion-dollar company as, yes, it's a senior level position. I report to the president and CEO. I'm a vice president, but it's a big company. It's we're 4 buildings on our campus. This is not a little thing, right? And so the culture shock of going from that small mom and pop company to this big corporate environment was part of it. And then obviously flipping sides, going from the one who was specifying, selling, and installing to the one now who's got to build these products and build the software and support our dealers and everything that goes into that. It was definitely challenging. It took me probably a few months just to come to grips with what am I doing here? Like,
yeah, I have a similar story where I went to work briefly for a manufacturer, and there were little things that I would come across, like, why did you print the serial number on the bottom of the box where you'll never see it in the rack once it's installed and next flat up against the other thing? It's just like little things like, oh, we can move this sticker that we stick on everything here so you can actually read it. So yeah, I totally get that one. Jason, I think you wanted to follow up on something.
Yeah, I did. I can't imagine that was a big transition. And to that end, John, I also know Audio Command Systems, a very successful integration company, and it sounds like you were really on a great track there and part ownership, and presumably could have very easily ridden out your career there. And so what that couldn't have been an easy decision. What was it ultimately that swayed you over to the side of Crestron? Yeah,
so I would say by all means, it was probably the most difficult decision of my life, because I had invested so much into ACS. I'd been there for 20 plus years when I left, 20 almost 23 years, and I had an opportunity there, right, to that most people don't ever really get. Just if you shut up and go to work every day, you'll eventually own the company, right? and that was really what was put in front of me, and that's an amazing opportunity, and it's a great company by all means. But I saw this as something different, and I think about things in life, and I guess it's the things that you don't do that you regret the most, right? Not necessarily the things you do. Everyone makes mistakes and makes the wrong choice here and there, but I didn't want to pass up this opportunity and then regret it later, because arguably this is probably one of the best jobs in the industry, and a fantastic opportunity to come into a company like Crestron and deliver direction and focus towards the residential business unit, and really just take the reins. And to be honest, my boss now, Randy, he's given me everything I've asked for since I've been here. The support that I get from him and from the rest of the company to just do this has been just amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, I want to kind of go back in time with you there. Just one last time, I promise. CEDIA 2014 is kind of that era that we began to notice those DIY products brought in, and surrounding the giant anchor booth of Crestron, which I can totally understand why he felt that way. So, one of the things that did come out of CEDIA 2014 was a small little system called Crestron Ping. And I remember that Jason and I were both super excited about this. We had Evan Ackman on back on episode 38. Came in and gave us the rundown on what you could do with a little $599 box to get a Crestron system started. That has evolved since you have been there, and kind of is I don't know, as far as the residential side is concerned, and what I see, coming out of Crestron has evolved into like the flagship product during your tenure at Crestron.
So look, I am a former Crestron programmer. In fact, I'm a gold master programmer. Last I checked, there were 40 of us on the planet, right? So that's where I had really earned my or earned my place at my company prior to leaving. And I knew that that situation was for the bulk of our dealers was unsustainable, right? Having to sit there with a laptop for a few hours, days or weeks to get a system up and running, even if it's a basic system, and having to draw buttons and screens on touch panels, was unsustainable for the long term, right? Now, before I go on, I still will say that, that's part of Crestron's heritage, and being able to do that that will always be there, right? I mean, that's something that sets us apart from everyone else, and there are places for that. But for your average home, your average media room, family room, living room, that shouldn't be required, right? And I think that in looking at Ping, and because it had been a stable platform for a while, really that's the base. That's where Crestron Home evolved from, right? We started with adding video sources into it, and we called it Ping, and we gave it a name. We called it OS2, right? Because I really wanted, one of the questions I got a lot was, what is Ping, right? And it was really hard to describe, because from a product perspective, it's all of our regular products, but it was just a processor and an application. But it was really hard to describe until I called it an OS, an operating system, because now then light bulbs went off and people got it. Okay, this is this platform that's this anchor for everything else that we do. But knowing that the user experience wasn't fantastic, and knowing that we also needed some things on the back end to help support and grow that platform, we invested heavily into end user testing, a lot of interaction with our dealers. I mean, we hired this outside firm to come in and interview end users who own Crestron systems and own competing systems to try and define what the user experience should really be like. And that's what you see now in Crestron Home. It was years of development that got us there, and it's been around for 13 months now. But also on the back end, it is the base of what Ping was, right? You configure it with an iPad app. You can do it from a desktop app also, but it's served to you. It's not a piece of software you download from our website and install and have to keep up with versions. It's a completely different way of doing things, and and from our, at least from my perspective, I think it's the future of how these systems will be done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You touched on it there at the end, and I'd love to zoom in a little bit on it and talk about what were some of the biggest challenges in going from that model where all of the programming was done on an executable file that you put on your laptop to now having it to be able to drag and drop in an iPad interface. And can you give us a sense, sort of an overview of what some of the biggest product design and engineering design challenges are associated with a transition like that?
So let me step back for 1 second, because look, as a business owner and a former programmer who ran a team of programmers at my company, just the management of that is really, really tough to sustain and to maintain. Who's making sure everyone's on the latest version? Who's got the latest files? Did you back up your laptop? When I go to Mr. Jones's home to go do an update, do I have all the latest files? Sure you do, until you get there and you find out, no, you don't. And now you're calling everyone in the company to find out who's got the latest touch panel file for the master bathroom, or where's this module or driver or whatever. So that all goes out the window with Crestron Home, right? This is all stored in the cloud, right? If someone's processor fails, we can go there with a new processor and pull down the configuration from the cloud. I don't have to worry about versioning or who's got the files or where they might reside, so that really is what I think is defines what modern software really should be.
I gotta say, people listening to this was less than 10 years ago. This is standard industry practice. And yeah, you look at how fast things have developed on the software development side for, say, iOS, Android, for web technologies. Oh my gosh, it's light speed. And not having the up-to-date code synced across 20 computers through your Git account, it's like it's unfathomable to me now that like you just going over that, and I'm having flashbacks, mostly trauma flashbacks of yesteryears where you'd get on a project and you'd be like, where do I begin with this? I don't have what I need for this. And it all comes down to, I don't have a piece of software that I can't download at this house to run on this panel. So it's a night and day difference moving into a modern architecture like Crestron Home.
Yeah, look, I had a programmer one time lose his laptop, right? Now we're trying to figure out when he last backed up and how many projects were affected by that, right? And you hope that the people who were between the last time you backed up and the time he lost his laptop never call you, right? And that's just horrible to think that way. The world has changed so quickly and so dramatically it sounds silly to even talk about now.
It does.
Yeah. So, and I'm sitting here smiling and nodding my head as well, because, definitely been there before, and it was a painful experience. So certainly I think going to this new, new as of, 4 or 5 years ago, newer model of programming and managing the code, obviously I would call it a slam dunk on the integrator side. But I'd love to get your perspectives on just like inside of a company like Crestron. I've never worked at a company that big, and I just have to imagine that sort of a shift requires significant investment in just time and energy and kind of moving to new models. Can you give us a feel for what navigating a transition like that at a company like Crestron feels like?
Well, the one good thing was that I did have a really close connection to Crestron. The proximity of where my office is, or where Crestron is now, or always has been, and where I live. We had being one of their bigger dealers at the time, being able to go there routinely, have some insight of what was going on from a hardware and software perspective, being able to provide feedback to that team. So I kind of knew a lot of the guys on the back end. But when I came aboard, again, my initial role was really just domestic residential in the beginning. But again, feeling your way through this corporate environment, having, executive leadership meetings where I'm surrounded by, 6 other, executives, VPs, C-level executives, and the rest of the team. That's very different than a mom and pop couple of guys in the conference room meeting, where everyone's got a PowerPoint presentation. You're talking about projections. You're talking about things that, we did a pretty good job with that at ACS, but this is a whole new ball game, right? And the numbers are so big, and the employees are just so vast. Everything is different, and it was learning on the job really quickly. And the second year I was there, my role expanded to be global. And so now you're dealing with, the integration companies in other countries, right? From Australia to Spain to France to Latin America and all over the place. And they all have similar but different needs. And understanding that, the first 18 months was a tremendous learning experience and honestly, I still learn. I say to my boss, Randy, I learn things here every single day.
Yeah, I have to imagine. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Timely here having you on the show. You guys just, I believe last week, officially released your 70 series touch panels. Give us an overview of those, both from a hardware and software perspective.
So some of the things you'd expect in the next generation of touchscreens, right? Better displays, higher resolution, great off-axis viewing, faster processing. So that, and obviously a cleaner, newer industrial design, right? Thin bezels, really, really clean look. We do have two different models now. So typically in the previous generation, we had a wall mount. And if you wanted to table mount it, you bought a little add-on kit and it clipped into there. The new ones are two discretely different models. The table mount is a molded piece of aluminum. It's really, really beautiful, if you can use that word for a touchscreen. I think it's just spectacular. The wall mount is a separate unit. All models have, or at least the table and the wall mounts have a couple of new features. So, we do exclusively run the Sonos app in our touchscreens and have for a while. So yes, we can do things with their integration API, right? So I can browse my Sonos favorites list. I can see what's playing through our typical integration, just like all of our competitors. But I can also, and this has been going on for a couple of years now, where I can launch the Sonos app if I want to search or browse for content, right? So the new panel supports the S2 version of the Sonos app. And we also added two new features that I think are really, really awesome. The first one is a proximity sensor. It sounds silly, right? You have that the panel wakes up when I walk up to it, and big deal. I'd normally just touch the screen to wake it or to get it out of a screensaver. But that little second and a half, whatever it is, just really makes the user experience really, really nice. When I walk up to my 70 series touchscreens here at home and they just come to life when I go there, being able to just look at information immediately is awesome, right? And then the other feature that I think is really nice is that we added Wi-Fi into these, right? So that does a couple of things. We have lots of legacy panels out there from the old days that don't or may not have Ethernet cabling in the wall, right? Have old CrestNet cabling to drive our older panels. So you can now power that panel and connect via Wi-Fi, right? So great for upgrading older customers with older systems for their wall-mounted devices. But the use cases that I have for the couple that I have here at home are my bedside. I don't have an Ethernet jack at my bedside, and being able to just power this and have a Crestron Home table mount touchscreen on my bedside is awesome. And my kitchen counter is another place, and my coffee table in my family room. I didn't wire Ethernet jacks in all these places, and this is a great little tool that allows us to spread more of these around the home.
Yeah. Well, they look great too. We talked about them a little bit on last week's show, and from all of the imagery that I've seen online, you guys did a really fantastic job. I think with the design on those, a very modern, sleek looking touch panel, and it sounds like you've got a great feature set there. I like the proximity thing. I agree. It seems like a small thing, but those are kind of the little experiences that just make for a more delightful engagement with a device, and over time those add up.
It's funny, words don't do it justice. We could talk about it all we want here, but until you actually use it, it sounds silly, but it really changes the way you interact with the panel.
This is why I miss trade shows right here. The Crestron group, really.
Yeah, indeed. Well, speaking of missing trade shows, nice segue into the next question here, because with COVID and everything going on with that this year, obviously a lot of people working from home and not just working, but trying to find new ways to stay at home but still stay connected. And I know that home conferencing for you guys has been a big focus this year. So share some of your perspectives on the growing importance of this category and what you at Crestron are doing to both capitalize on it yourselves and of course help your integrator partners do that as well.
So that's been a tremendous effort since I'd say since we all got kind of sequestered at home in March. We uniquely fit in this space where we straddle both sides, commercial and residential. Our enterprise products that are used for unified communications, both in the corporate boardroom and the like, can easily be adapted to the home space. Now, I know it can be overwhelming for a lot of our residential dealers. So what we tried to do is figure out a few things that really make sense. Like I said, we have over 4,000 SKUs on our website. It can be daunting for a lot of our residential dealers who are used to just selling the typical things that would go into a household. Where do I start? What goes into a home office? And then going just beyond the home office, right? What does the home classroom look like? And what products from Crestron fit in that space? And then, we came out with a product we call Crestron Home Time, which is really about socializing from home, right? This literally came out of a conversation on Zoom between my boss and I'd say mid-March, end of March, about, people gathering around a laptop trying to communicate, a family gathering around a laptop trying to communicate with extended family, and how difficult that was, and what a horrible experience that is, right? Trying to get the kids to wave at grandma with a laptop on the kitchen table. And we make products that sit in large corporate boardroom spaces. And so how can we adapt that for home? And we did. And we partnered with Zoom, and we built this product. And Zoom thought we were crazy, because here's a product that was really intended for a corporate boardroom with an IT and AV staff to support it. So we kind of had to sell the idea to them. This was not a product. Zoom Room products were not intended for the residential space. So making it simple, providing controls was the key. So I'm holding the remote in my hand because this is programmed for my Crestron Home Time. So being able to join a Zoom conference, being able to look at my list of scheduled meetings, or being able to invite people from my contacts list right from a scrolling list of my touchscreen remote is amazing. And then when I'm in the call, I can pan, tilt, and zoom the camera. I can mute my mic. I can mute my camera, all from the remote control. The same one I turn the TV on with, select sources, and control my lighting and shading with. So, tying that all together and then demonstrating that for the Zoom people, I think they were kind of blown away.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those technologies. Like we're talking about this in the scope and the context of a pandemic, but there's plenty of people who have gone to work over the past number of months, who have started to work from home and realized that they can always work from home if they wanted to. And there are companies that have realized the same thing. So like having the technology and the ability to leverage the technology into these homes, especially in the homes that you and I are talking about, and the C-level executives and that kind of thing, they're going to want to look and sound great. They're not going to want to use their laptop camera and say something, then the rest of the board doesn't hear them. They want to be known. So,
well, look, I'll sorry to interrupt. I'll take it even one step further. After I installed this and we're using it, I have two daughters who are finishing their spring semester in college, who were sent home. And, I next thing I know, they're vying for, time in my family room so that they can attend their Zoom classrooms on my Crestron Home Time unit, right? Because they wanted to, trying to do that on a 13 or 15-inch laptop while you're trying to school on it and communicate can be difficult. I mean, we've all done it. But now the family room becomes the classroom. My 80-inch TV is their portal into the classroom, and they can use their laptop to take notes and do their schoolwork on, and freeing that up from being a communication device, right? So just that in itself is amazing to see.
Yeah, the only place I was going with this, I think, like post-pandemic, we're obviously going to get past this one of these days. But post-pandemic, this is still going to be a technology I think that integrators should brush up on and at least get involved in a little bit more. And it's great to have leadership from a company like Crestron and getting on board with this idea, because the idea from working from home isn't going away. The idea of doing happy hour calls or whatever from home, that's not going to go away. And I think our customers are going to all show us what they want to do with this technology now that it exists in the house and it's easy to set up a call amongst their friends and have a quick happy hour. I think they're going to show us what exactly they want to do. And like I said, it's great to have product that we can actually get into the house that works.
I think you're right. I think in the old days, like 10 months ago, the home office was a desk and maybe a laptop on it, right? And now, we get calls from our design build professional partners, the architects and the interior designers who are working on new projects, new residential projects, and asking us how they should be preparing these spaces at home. What does the home office look like? What infrastructure do I need in place? How should things be positioned so, the TV across the room does make sense to use? Or what does the home classroom look like? So again, I think, whether, I know this will go back to normal at some point in time, but I think, for the foreseeable future, people will think differently about how they build out these spaces in their homes.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think along those same lines, another topic we wanted to touch on was your partnership with Delos and the home wellness movement in general. I think this is another trend that certainly has been around for a while and will exist beyond the pandemic that we're dealing with right now. But similar to home conferencing, also a category that is being boosted and being lifted up into more people's minds. So talk a little bit about your take on the overall wellness market and give us a little bit of information about what you guys are doing in conjunction with Delos.
Sure. So obviously wellness is on the front of mind for everyone these days for the obvious reason, right? But what Delos does is really unique, and what they did behind building the wellness building standard and the people that they partnered with before coming to market, like the Mayo Clinic, to define, what wellness should really be, I think was really amazing, right? Besides air quality and water quality and, the sleep quality and light quality and, all of these things that tie together to deliver a well environment or a wellness focused environment. So I think that was, again, very timely. I was connected to them and we talked about what we can do together. We had lots of projects that were going in, and it was, I'd say a little difficult for some of our dealers to integrate Crestron and Delos. So how can we make that easier? So when we launched our 70 series panels last week, one other app that we allow our residential dealers to be able to deploy in the touchscreens is the Delos Darwin app, right? So yes, we integrate, and yes, we can do some cool things between the two systems through programming. But if I want to go to that next level of integration, I can literally launch the Delos app right on the touchscreen. And this is just, I would call it phase one in the level of integration that we're working with the Delos team on. This is going to continue. We really look at a tight partnership between us. And that will continue to evolve. And the demand is really just beginning right now. So, I get calls a few times a week from dealers on how does this work? How do I talk to my customers about it? What's the best way to present this to them? And we connect them with Delos. We work together on this, and it's been really good so far.
Got it. Great. Well, we are running close to our time here, and I want to start to wrap things up by zooming out a little bit. Especially when we get somebody like you who's been around the industry for a long time in a wide variety of roles, we love to kind of close these interviews out with maybe more business type or leadership type topics. And I'd love to end there and ask you, what advice do you give to integrators who are looking to grow your business? You work at Crestron now, and before you worked at a very, very large integrator. And so what sort of advice do you give to integrators who are grappling with that challenge?
So that's a great question. So like I said, back in the old days, like 10 months ago, when I used to travel a lot and go see dealers, obviously, my purpose was to talk about Crestron, and we'd spend a lot of time, talking about Crestron. But literally right after that, more often than not, the conversation evolved into business-related questions. How did you grow ACS from 15 people to 150 people? Is that something I should do? And again, what I try to do is explain things in a way where these are the things that work for me, and these are the things, after being in this job now for almost 5 years, that I've seen throughout the world with integrators that have worked for them, right? And it's not you should do this in a business advice kind of way. It's I try and hold some discussion around, like I said, the things that work for me. And honestly, one of the most important things that I try and reinforce is, having good financial metrics. I would say that almost always evolves into that type of a discussion, right? Dealers, especially the smaller ones who've been in business just a few years and may have a handful of employees, right? They go through these growing pains at different periods. It's when they hire their first non-billable employee, right? When it's a small company and it's 4 or 5 people, essentially everyone's working on job sites and everyone is essentially billable. But what happens when you hire the first warehouse person or the first receptionist or the first bookkeeper? And this is now essentially overhead, right? These are people you have to pay that really aren't generating direct revenue. And having that discussion is always interesting, right? And then the other part that I touched on is having good financial metrics. I'd say, unfortunately, many dealers in our space don't really know if they made money on the previous project or the previous quarter. Having those abilities really, really helped us grow and helped us protect ourselves when we went through tough times. Going through the 07, 08 housing crunch and being proactive there, I think really helped save the company. And in the end, I think when 2010 came around and we look back, we were a leaner, meaner, stronger company. We were able to protect the best employees that we had. And in some cases we look back and we probably offloaded people that we probably shouldn't have hired in the first place. You learn these things as you go through them, but nonetheless, I really try and provide that bit of advice, just my own personal experiences, and then what I've seen other successful companies around the world just be good at. I mean, there are things that I wish I had done that I see now from some of our dealers. I met with a dealer about a year and a half ago who happened to be there on a day where he shut down his company in the afternoon and took all of his employees to a job site, right? And I thought that was brilliant, because the warehouse person or the receptionist or whoever else is never leaving the building doesn't really understand what the company does, right? They have their job, their task that they go through every day. But until they got to a job site and saw a completed project and were able to experience a happy end customer who was thrilled with the job that was done, and to see it all in action, it was breathtaking. And that's one of my one of the things that I've learned from traveling with some of the dealers I've met.
Love it.
Well, John,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Seth.
Well, John, we're coming up on our time here, but I do want to jump in here at the end and ask, what is next for Crestron? What are you and the team getting excited about these days?
Well, look, I will say that the constant evolution of Crestron Home is one of the big focuses. It's hard to keep track of for a lot of our dealers because it is such a rapidly moving platform. Even internally, I mean, we have a release coming next week, and that will be our 9th major release to the platform in the 14 months of its existence. And each one of those releases adds in new features, streamlines some deployment aspects, and just the platform is literally evolving at a very rapid pace. I mean, so that is the heart of the future of Crestron Residential, and by far, and this is a huge statement, it is the single biggest engineering project at Crestron, right? And this is a company, where the significant portion of our business is focused on the enterprise space. The Crestron Home team internally on the engineering and product development side is by far the single largest group inside of Crestron. So we are dead serious about this and fully invested in the future of this platform. But obviously there are some hardware pieces coming along too that you'll see soon.
Oh, excellent. Well, John, thanks so much for your time tonight and dropping by and telling us a little bit what's going on at Crestron these days. If people want to connect with you or learn more Crestron Home, where can they go?
Clancy at Crestron for email, at Crestron.com, sorry. And then on LinkedIn are probably the two easiest places to reach me.
Awesome. Well, John, this was a lot of fun. We really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
And that'll do it for our conversation with John. Again, really fun. I've been wanting to get John on the show for quite some time, and in a way, I'm glad we waited. Like it not that they haven't been busy this whole time, but it feels like things have really matured there at Crestron on the residential front, and being able to take that long view over the last 5 or so years since he took the helm and really covering a bunch of those broad topics was really cool. Hopefully, it won't be another 5 years until we get somebody from Crestron on the show. But again, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see where the Crestron Home product goes. It's a very exciting product to me, just because I can see how much potential it has built in under the hood there, from being like an easy deploy, reliable system. It's been a long time coming, and I'm just glad we got to finally sit down with John and talk about all the stuff they've done to get the product where it is. And I'm excited to have it. I'm excited to see what they're doing with it these days. And of course, all the teasing that he did about new products that are coming out. I don't know if that made the interview, but it may have been after the interview. But yeah,
there's a little bit in there, but a little bit more after. So yeah. So it sounds like some big things coming there. And I thought, the last comment I'll make, and then we'll move on, that it was just fascinating to hear, given all the speculation when Crestron pulled out of CEDIA, and then to hear that John, who at the time was working at one of the biggest Crestron dealers probably in the world, had gone to Crestron and said, "Hey, you guys have kind of confirmed my doubts here. I was worried about your commitment to the channel," and how they basically said, "Well, if you believe in it so much, come do something about it." And he did. And I think that's so cool. I really loved hearing that story.
That's one of my favorite things to do at my homeowners association meetings. You can bring ideas, but keep your hand up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all volunteers are welcome.
Yeah. Great way to limit the amount of ideas being thrown at you.
And that's true. That's true.
All right. Well, moving on. Seth, looks like you got a pick of the week here.
I do. It's a pretty good one now. Jason, I think I found the cure for our trade show woes in 2021. What we're going to have to do is all get one of these things, though. And go ahead and click that link.
All right. I'm opening this up here. Cue the Jeopardy music.
This is a personal air purifying shield. And just imagine a trade show full of integrators walking around with these things on.
Oh my God. Only $379 too.
Right. Now I can think of a number of creative ways that One Vision can sponsor these trade show bubbles, if you will.
There you go. I like where you're going with this.
Yeah. Look at that. It's got a fanny pack in the front of it.
Wow.
I mean, this is styling. This is styling.
This is legit. I like the middle. I don't know if this is a GIF or what you would even call these, but the guy just looks so casual.
He's just chilling. Just imagine that guy talking to a vendor about 70 touchscreens.
Yeah, zipper pockets. Looks like 3 of them. This is brilliant.
It's very interesting. It's on sale right now, so make sure you go pick one up. And they've got one of these little fake thing that say somebody in Canada just purchased one of these. Now this thing's popping up every 2 seconds, so I expect that like people are gonna have these things all over the place next week. You're just gonna be walking down the street and notice somebody walking around in one of these.
Oh, these are gonna take off totally.
Now they only come in 3 sizes: medium, small, and adult large. And I'm wondering if to service our industry, they may need a couple of other sizes. I'm not going to say which direction, but I'll leave that.
Aaron in Iceland just purchased a box of filters.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Good stuff. Where do you find this, Seth?
Actually, I was scrolling through the hub and I noticed that James had posted it, and I don't know if I clicked that or not, that link that he had posted, because I ran across it on Facebook. It was a Facebook ad that I saw, and so I didn't click the ad in Facebook because why would you do something like that? I just went directly to the website. But as I was scrolling up to find the funny picture that I posted of this guy standing there, I ran across that James had actually beat me to the punch, and maybe he clicked on the Facebook ad, and that's what got us all down this rabbit hole.
This is great. Well, you got to hand it to him. Enterprising. And who knows, maybe the next pandemic that comes out will be like just so virulent and deadly that we'll look back at this and think how stupid we were for not buying one.
I should have gotten my visor. Yeah, exactly. Can buy it with Apple Pay.
Oh, man. That's good stuff. All right. Well, if you have any feedback, by the way, you got to go look at this one in the show notes. just imagine, like I should have said this sooner because we're an audio only show here, but like it looks like an astronaut helmet, like the big giant astronaut suits, like the helmet that just sits over your shoulders.
But not shaped anything like that. It looks like a giant thumb. just it looks like a thumb.
And you're inside a bubble and it just rests on your shoulders and you got little zipper fanny packs on the front, filter on the back. So I don't know.
I wonder if it's hot.
It's got to be.
I mean, in Florida, this can't be the most fun thing to traverse your local outdoor, what do they call those things? Farmer's market. It just doesn't. Yeah.
That's right.
I'd almost want to like have like a hidden camera and walk around with one of these at a farmer's market.
Well, I can tell you that you'd probably get similar looks to what I got. Like I was one of the very first people that I saw like wearing a mask, a bandana over my face at the grocery store early in the pandemic. And like now, of course, everybody wears them, but definitely like felt like a crazy person. So I think I could buy one of these and get that reaction again if I were so inclined.
If you wanted to, this would get you a reaction.
It definitely would. All right, well, let's keep moving. If you got any feedback, questions, comments, picks of the week, or ideas for a show topic or guest, give us a shout. Our email address is feedback@HomeTech.fm. Once again, that is feedback@HomeTech.fm.
We want to give a big thank you to everyone who supports the show, but especially those who are able to financially support the show through our Patreon page. If you don't know about our Patreon page, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support to learn how you can support HomeTech for as little as $1 a month. Any pledge over $5 a month gets a big shout out on the show, but every pledge gets you an invite to our private Slack chat, The Hub, where you and other supporters of the show can gather every day to chat about, I think we were talking about HomePods earlier.
There you go.
HomePods, they go on sale November 6th. Jason.
All right.
So the little minis.
Well, I know, Seth, you're the early adopter here, so I'll let you go first.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
Are you?
I am thinking about it.
I feel like you have to.
I feel like I probably will. I'm probably going to order one.
Like, I mean, we've waited this long and we had so much speculation and I don't know. Someone's got to do it. If you're looking for other ways to support the show, we would really appreciate a positive review on iTunes or in your podcast app of choice. Those reviews definitely help more people find the show. So if you're enjoying what we do here on the podcast, please take a minute to do that. We would really appreciate it.
All right, Jason, that wraps up this week's show. Really fun show. Really fun conversation with John Clancy. I'm so glad we finally got somebody from Crestron on that could talk to the product rather than speculate around it like you and I do. Because I'm not an expert in Crestron at all. Like I've been around the product, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a really fun show and had a good time coordinating it and putting it together. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Seth, I hope you have a great weekend. And hopefully by the time people are hearing this, we've got a little bit more clarity around what the heck is going to go on in this country here for the next 4 years or so.
Yeah, well, it is 2020, Jason, so temper your expectations
That's
a little
right.
bit. It could be somewhat after the show.
No doubt about that. All right, man. Well, have a good weekend.
You too, have a good weekend.